is rated PG. It contains themes and scenes which may not be suitable for very young audiences. Parental guidance is advised.
Previously on Mapping 101 Thursdays that we have shared last week to the pre-recorded edition, whereas Mapping 101 Thursdays returns here live both on YouTube and on Facebook Live. Without further ado, let's welcome again Dear Paul. Good evening everyone, and of course you're now watching Mapping 101 Thursdays, and this is your one and only Dear Paul speaking. And of course last week, as I have shown it up to you on the full screen on the right side of your screen, well, last week that there's something that we have to consider on restoring into the solo carriageway. And yes, of course, this we warn that the whole Mapping 101 Thursdays live production is strictly copyrighted by DP24 Media. Unauthorized reproduction or distribution of this live broadcast strictly prohibited under the copyright laws. And of course, the credits for this imagery goes into the Maxar Technologies, and of course most of the mapping data are provided by OpenStreetMap and contributors. It is licensed under the Creative Commons Share-alike license 3.0 or 4.0. And of course, we have Mapping 101 alert here. City bus routes 5 and 7 got into different roadway to take, whereas the city bus 5 and 7 heading towards the Quezon Avenue are now being diverted off to the NIA Road, BIR Road after the GMA Kamuning. And of course, Mapping 101 alert is hereby introduced in response to the changes brought from the several changes into the direction in which we have to comply for the sake of the betterment of the commuting public as well. And of course, having said that, more passengers are needed to brace for some sort of inconvenient ways, especially if you're heading towards Quezon Avenue or the Highway 170, 7th Radial Road, that instead of the frontage of the Teton Sentries, of course, there are changes that we have to brace. Of course, here's the warning for all of our Java OpenStreetMap editors. Moving elements by a large distance is often an error, especially if your inexperienced editors that haven't used into these warning systems. So you have to move any element, it's either a node or a way or relation, or rather node, way, and area with caution, especially if there are multiple elements, either more than 20 elements or a larger distance of greater than 200 meters. Of course, we're going to skip some sort of, or let me say, let's have some sort of faster speed that is needed in order to, but for some reason, let me post this for a while. And having said that, we have to practice physical distancing, 5S discipline as well, in order for us to be more organized into editing session, in which I might have to, configure this media player first. But while I'm editing or configuring something on our end, of course, there would be most of the advanced settings that we have to do some sort of careful planning, most especially if you're going to do all sorts of editing that requires either reviews or supervision, or most likely by experience. Without further ado, I might have to do some sort of fast forwarding instead of some sort of and of course I'll going to have to show it to you on what's happened at that time. Whereas, let me play this one, still in Bacoor City, which is survey aired last week. I'm wondering why the media player that I'm trying to do some sort of fast forward hasn't working. But anyways, on the advice for the let me go into full screen. Or a picture in picture as well, in order for you to get an idea. Whereas I have to use the arrow keys for some sort of fast forwarding. Maybe there's a problem on my end, especially when it comes to, doing all sorts of multimedia stuff. But anyways, we have to be more careful on mapping such things. And let's say that we have to be more prudent on the mapping practices. And don't forget the brace that is being needed in order to restore such mapping into the solo carriageway without any sort of, deletions that may happen. And what I have realized something, here it is. Though it's very hard to practice more often because of our, student duty practice of studying for some sort of academics, but I have found a way to manage some time and without affecting most of the route relations, in which it has to be reviewed also. That even includes the city bus routes, provincial bus routes. And by the way, speaking of provincial bus routes, it is now already a P2P mode because we don't want to compete with the existing city bus routes that have been set already by the LTFRB. And having said that, we have to review it first, and most probably what I have done is to reuse such way segments, nodes into the blank or the ID 01 or ID or no ID number, or that being said, no ID number rather for the node, way, or relation. And if there are existing, existing number, why not try to reuse it? And of course, as I have said earlier in this mapping 101 Tuesdays, moving more than a greater distance or a multiple elements like more than 20 soften an error. And if you're inexperienced mapper, you have to listen to this advice. You have to be careful on moving. And of course, if you have accidentally moved, there is a second option that says undo move in order to restore back to the original position. Let's assume this one. Let me do some sort of forwarding. And yes, of course, the route relation has to be recalibrated as well. And having said that, selected provincial bus routes have been allowed by the LTFRB, most likely din Cebu, Batangas City, and even Lipa, and also Calamba in Laguna, Santa Cruz, and so on and so forth, and even San Fernando City in Pampanga have been allowed also, to Metro Manila, to designated terminals only, such as the Parañaque Integrated Terminal Exchange, Araneta City Busport, and the rest of the public or provincial long-haul buses will be redirected elsewhere. Say if you're from Mindanao or Visayas heading to Metro Manila, then you could be redirected to Santa Rosa Integrated Transport Terminal. And having said that, if you're going to open multiple relations, which is more than 3, then there's a possibility of software freezing if your computer does not have such capability to open such different relation editors simultaneously. And having to say that, it is advisable to check first with the system. And here's the simulation. On what would happen on the most city and provincial bus routes could be another story once again. Let me do some sort of fast forwarding for the mapping 101 alert. Excuse me, please. And while on the forwarding into mapping 101 alert, let me say that this one has been restored already, which is the after product. And I have to apologize for the dead air last week. Say that we have restored mostly into solo carriageway for the Bacoor City without ever deleting such huge amounts of data. And the Cavite School of St. Mark has been mapped also. Route or restriction relations has to be reviewed as well. Walls of the excuse this, Remulla Business Park have been added as well. And further zooming in, this portion has been redefined into, on the right side part is the Camellia Homes, and this one is the Justinville, but that one that is being located by the hand pointer is incorrect, and that's why there are last minute changes to be made. And having said that, there are some sort of tricks that has to say is to improve rather going into the fast forward city bus routes 27 including 27 Delta, 28 and 29 have been added as well as the authorized bus stop for that location. Panapaan is being assigned for 27, 27 Delta, and 28. For Nyog, it's the same. Of course, we have to review first for the Aguinaldo Boulevard, which is assigned or signed as Highway 62 as well. And what I have realized is that there's a line 1 extension to be installed above the Highway 62. And without further ado, line 1 is now on the construction progress. Hopefully that most of the lines will be completed as well. Might be partially available from Baclaran to PICC Asia World Interchange. For Talaba, there's a need to add some sort of stop position and the equivalent bus or share taxi if it's allowed. But now things have changed and only buses are allowed, and the equivalent for the minibus is the modern jeepney. And the beat jeep has been depreciated in favor of City Bus Route 29, and they have to be diverted elsewhere. More likely, it would be a modernization of the Paliparan side based jeepney routes heading to the city proper, or also known as the downtown Dasmanias. Let me fast forward this one. And let's process. 27, 27 Delta, 28 and 29 has been mapped already for the Zapote Longos part. And it's sad to say that the northern bound side have been, unused, thus leading into further deterioration. And hopefully Bacoor City will do something to rehab all of the bus stop waiting sheds, and that being included also is the southbound as well. And of course, on all city bus routes, only city buses are allowed to do unload and load. Provincial buses must keep off the city bus routes or if not avoidable, keep off from the bus stops. Going to the fast forward is the alert, whereas the city bus route 29 have started from the Pure Gold General Mariano Alvarez itself, heading northwards via Paliparan site and even Molino as well, Bacor Boulevard as well, to PICC. And here's the problem with the boundary. If you're on a highway wherein there are two towns that are going to share with a highway acting as a border control zone, oh my goodness me. Provincial government has to intervene if one of the, municipality have an existing policies that might cause unwarranted conflict. This is what happened to DLTV company, in which supposedly residents coming from the Bulihan as to get off on a bus via Jollibee General Alvarez, but there's something wrong in the past that needs to be corrected. You know what? It ended up into Dasmariñas City's welcome arch fronting the Techno Park, in which most of the passengers, oh my goodness me, have not satisfied, but instead of blaming into the conductors as well, acting as a frontline worker, why not try to do some sort of petition to your municipal government or city government to address such inconvenience issues? In my own personal opinion, you know what? I have a tendency to jog from one place to another, even on a greater than 1 kilometer of jogging. But before I jog further down, I have summoned one of the motorcycle rider not wearing helmet, and he's on his slippers. You know that what I mean is I care for the safety and security of you all, and this will be on the follow-up safety episode tomorrow on DP24 in Focus live session, which is at the new timetable, 2000 hours, 8 p.m. tomorrow. And of course, Mapping 101 Thursdays, here's the good news for you. It is now being extended into 2 hours instead of the usual 1 hour. And having said that, Mapping 101 Thursdays live session will be aired on 2 hours every week for you to be enjoyable on the new production that we're about to be given to you. And say for example, on this map, this welcome arch fronting Tasmania's Technopark has been, going through much improvements and everything else that it takes to be at the right time and right place. And this one is the depot for San Agustin. And having said that, San Agustin is now going to service both City Bus 28 and City Bus 29. On the other side, in Carmona, there are some sort of fixings for some sort of bus stop configuration, and might as well that is, Susana Heights interchange has been becoming the diversion point for all city buses from Binyan, including Southwoods every morning, to Ayala, as Muntinlupa City have to, avoid certain buses on a national highway, causing much inconvenience to the commuters who are used to the bus routes already. And you know what? Such unwarranted changes would cause an impact on the passenger welfare as well. And by the way, on the other side, Mapping 101 alert once again is that there's a positive side for this one. Shanghai MCX roundabout interchange. That traffic congestion due to the former two-way divided highway system has been rerouted into the roundabout interchange. And having said that, it decongests already the whole Shanghai MCX and even Dangrena and the local Biason Road. And the signal light has to be modified on the northern side in order to deter some sort of erratic movements. And sad to say that most of the motorists are not respecting the roundabout right of way, and more of the safety concerns will be discussed on DP24 in Focus live session. Let's have to do fast forwarding into the another location. Maybe on the flip side, the rehabilitation efforts that I have been aiming to become a thesis topic, well, sadly it's not suitable for this time, not even during the pandemic disaster. Maybe it would be into the right time. Hopefully this would happen, including the proposed roundabout or pedestrian linkage. But anyways, the positive development for the Metro Manila Skyway extension. It has to be, sometimes upon the construction, one or two lanes has to be closed in order to give way for the works. Heading northwards, the northbound side is about to be connected at any time into the stage 2 part, and hopefully freighter traffic would be allowed, might as well be bus, but for safety reasons, as far as I know, freighter traffic that have greater than 10 or 10 tons have disallowed into the elevated portion of the Metro Skyway, and it's not fully truck rated for the elevated portion. For the E5 or the NLEX Harbor Link segment 10, 9, or 8, including the Mindanao Avenue Link, have waited for trucks already. And NLEX Corporation have increased some sort of safety procedures. And of course, the overall expressway experience are rated to be excellent. And having said that, I have wanted to have some sort of mapping 101 live sessions here, but before that, there's an airport expressway here, the E6, and the pedestrian link bridge connecting Newport City and Airport Terminal 3 as well. And that becomes my inspiration for some sort of further studies that may take 3 to 5 years as per my professor panel advice. And going to some sort of thesis is not easy because there are some sort of studies, might as well as the processes that needs to take, that even the documentation could take longer than needed. Hence, there are some sort of negative history of the failing grade, especially when it comes to thesis oral defense. And to avoid this one, the panel had advised us to undergo most of the water resources engineering as well. But this would be on the DP24 on reflections this Saturday, most likely at 2100 hours. PICC becomes the permanent location for all provincial buses coming from the southern Luzon and Bicol as well. But due to the slot restrictions, limited deployment may apply. Let's have some sort of fast forward here. And of course, you have to be careful in writing out the address where it intended to be. Say, for example, if you're heading to, Terminal 1 or Cargo Fuel Terminal, then it's assumed to be in Parañaque City. The rest of the terminals would be at the Pasay City side. MIAA headquarters is in Pasay City as well. And of course, if we're going to analyze the runway here, runway 13 and 31, it has been extended southwards until here, and this dual taxiway has been, this and this have been depreciated. And I'm going to show it to you, the full open street map result. This one's kinda messy here. I have to do some sort of fast forward, and of course C5 Southlink Expressway might get extended as well. Going on the fast forward, Terminal 3 is hereby designated as a P2P buses, P2P bus terminal rather, and the City Bus Route 18 designated terminal before heading back to PICC. And for the development's sake, Manila Bay Area gets into sort of nourishment that it becomes a controversial topic for the masses during the pandemic disaster. And going northwards on a zoom out, And zooming in, this new Manila International Airport will be constructed and be completed probably within, I can't say some sort of estimates here because there are some sort of processes that may undertake for the reclamation of the said area for the airport, plus the transportation factor coming from the Balintawak Toll Plaza or Bagong Bayo or somewhere in Caloocan Valenzuela border. And there's a provision for the Metro Skyway stage, possibly stage 3 extension, heading towards the new Manila International Airport. And it would pass through Tuliahan River. And on the better development procedure, the elevated railway tracks will be constructed also alongside with the NLEX-SLEX connector segment. And on the state episode, last 20th September 2020, and today's 8th October 2020, contrary to the live or tape edition, the whole segment of the Metro Skyway Stage 3 mainline got completed already. And that being said, that there would be some sort of finishing touches, including the asphalt overlay, and the whole Pandakan segment has been recovered already, replaced by a steel instead of a concrete to avoid similar damages that has been occurred after the fire has blazed off several spans, melting down some sort of, concrete properties that might lead into collapse. Therefore, for the reconstruction to complete, that demolition has to be executed first for safety reasons. San Miguel plastic packaging, hopefully you could be recovered and be reconstructed somewhere else. And let's go back to the studio. Apart from the events that we're facing right now, we have to do some sort of shout outs, special things to Department of Public Works and Highways, Department of Transportation, Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, also to the OpenStreetMap Philippines, Maxar technologies, of course, mental health awareness. You know what? I might have to share some screen on what have been done on the past days. Well, if you know this segment that has been introduced earlier, and that being said is that more of the mappers are interested to know on what's happening on the surrounding areas, and upon a short break, I'll be going back for a few moments. So please stay tuned on here on Mapping 101 Thursdays. You're watching Mapping 101 Thursdays live from Tasmania City, home of the Papa Festival. Good evening to all of you. And of course, it's 8 October 2020. Assalamualaikum to all our dear Muslims. Shalom to our dear Israelis and Jewish communities as well. And of course, on the Arabic calendar, it's 21st Safar 1442 AH, or the Hijra calendar that most of the Arab countries have been using, and even our dear Muslim brethren are using as well. And of course, we are now on the Mapping 101 alert. Of course, major changes has been occurring ever since the Mapping 101 Thursdays has been made. And you know what? Those real-time updates have been provided by most of the Department of Public Works and Highways Inspection. And having said that, the Plaza Azul, or the, let me zoom this in, Nagtahan interchange rather, is almost completed, and might as well the whole Pandacan or Tomas Claudio interchange have been recovered already, and there's a provision for the NLEX SLEX connector segment, and it would be beside the railways as well. Oh, and if you're going to wonder what could it be the result for the elevated railway, then what could it be the next? That there would be a shifting into the elevation values as well. Well, it would be too high already, to the point of the wireline obstruction that needs to be cleared as well. And the blank segment from this until this could be greater than 4 and 5 as well. The multi-stack elevated roadway railway combination. And to avoid some sort of problems, there's a need for a careful planning for the construction, and for the development update's sake, as you can see this one, the Manila Bay Beach still under construction, could be more likely to be extended southwards. And the affected areas might be needed to be shifted westward as well, including the Manila Yacht Club, wherein I have personally experienced riding on a company-based yacht, focusing on the navigation instead of the enjoyment, and trying out some sort of features within the water transportation. But sadly, this is not a good idea to take a yacht ride, since there would be some sort of ongoing civil works. And let's head into the southern part of National Capital Region. Might as well that I have told you earlier that the northbound is about to be connected. The southbound is served by on the waiting stage. Let's zoom this out further once again in order for you to see on what's happening on the cycle map. Let's zoom this in further. The whole C4, or let me say, the whole Highway 1 AH26 Fourth Circumferential Road, also known as the EDSA, have transformed already into the de facto regional cycling network. Same as with the C6 and select radial roads as well. If this radial road 7, this 6, this would be more likely a 5, and another one 4 that might get interconnected. This one's 1, and this one's 2, this one's 3. This one's more likely to be 4 and interconnected to the 5th. This one's 6th, and this 7th. Then 8, 9, and 10. More likely a 5th radial road. And there's another regional cycling network. C4, C5, and C6 have been set up already as a de facto regional cycling network, and most probably sooner or later it would be turned into a national cycling network. This one from Marikina to San Mateo is also a regional one because they have existing cycling network already to be interconnected. Hopefully, more motorists will respect the cyclist space. Might as well as to give a frontliners space. Parañaque City have established one, Bacoor City, and even our very own Washington Place, which is being located for DP24 base, and of course Silang, and elsewhere for the Visayas, including Iloilo City, Cebu City, Talisay City, Mandaue City, and for Mindanao, Davao City as well. And for the transport mapping, let's zoom it in on what's happening here. If you know this one, buses 5 and 7 have used to be here. Highway 172, if I could, or 174 rather. Oh my goodness me. 172 Timog Avenue rather. I do apologize for the erratic information that I have said earlier. But of course, buses or city buses 5 and 7, if after GMA coming, you have to be very vigilant, commuters. After this one, then you have to brace for inconvenience because buses or city buses 5 and 7 have redirected instead into the National Printing Office, then NIA Road. NIA stands for National Irrigation Administration. Let's zoom this further and refresh this page. And this one is the BIR Eton centers that you could safely alight here. And then you could face the Centis Cyberpad 5 currently under construction after you cross. Then it continues straightward until you have to make a right into the rightmost part of the BIR road. Let me zoom this out. Most likely it would end up at Napocor before going into the right towards the Highway 170's elliptical road. The reason behind the rerouting is that there are so many buses bunching here at the Highway 1 AH26 4th Circumferential Road, also known as EDSA, that would cause unwarranted congestion at the grade itself. And of course, MMDA doesn't want this to be happen after they have learned something horrible that Sir Bong Nebihag got even mad already, and I'm concerned about his health, exposed into the sunlight or rain or other extreme temperatures. Of course, only bus Route 6 have the sole authority to use this one. That ever since there's a no U-turn slot for this part, it's much better to take some sort of diversion right into the for the bus Route 6 heading to Quezon City, right into BIR Road, straight through until Highway 174 East Avenue, then right again for GMA Kamuning, and then that's the time only the bus Route 6 have the sole bus stop here, and then left again, or use a U-turn slot somewhere underneath the overpass. And this one have solved some sort of mapping 101 difficulties that we have faced earlier for the medical route. Initially, you have to overshot this one in order to take this U-turn slot, causing signal lights twice, but now it has been resolved. I'm not 100% sure if this slot could be used as a, or let me say, as access to this local residential community, but let's see that if this would be possible. And for the reiteration's sake, buses are only allowed at the busway, and of course, no U-turns are allowed where the busway are present or the BRT lane. This U-turn slot got closed off permanently, same as this one. And I'm wondering why there are errant mappers are still mapping such U-turn slots despite the public announcement from the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority saying that those U-turn slots are permanently closed. And as a result, massive inconvenience have been occurred on certain motorists as well. Tricycles are banned by default on this national highway, and I'm not 100% sure where the Quezon City or Quezon Academy is located, but here's the alternative. If you're walking, then you don't have any problem. However, if you're driving, you might have to face some sort of difficulty Let me do this simulation. Say, for example, if you're walking, you will use the footbridge by default. But if you're using a motor vehicle, say you're going from this elementary school as a frontline worker, heading south into this parish church. The result is this. You have to take a roundabout at the western end. Same thing as with the, going back. That you might face 2.6 kilometer long stretch of driving. I'm not 100% sure if these U-turns are allowed or not. So if you have a knowledge that U-turns are strictly forbidden, you may consider add it up to the OpenStreetMap editor. But then again, if originating from Ayala Mall's Cloverleaf, same thing goes here. Or if from Balintawak Market, same thing goes here. Or maybe let's have to relocate to this. Most likely at the Caltex. Of course, from Balintawak Market, you have to exit into this service roadway, going back to this Highway 160, then exit right. Of course, here's the question. What about for those heading from this side to this side? Well, for the simulation purposes, I'll set this one from this to this. The result, it would be a lengthy drive already. You have to take the U-turn slot underneath here. And of course, I'm waiting for the, confirmation that it has been reviewed already, and say that how about for the southbound? Let's refresh this one. Oops. Say, let me relocate these pins. You might need to use the interchange. That would be a side effect for those who are still driving and not used for the, you know, U-turns, that closure and prohibition. But then again, for the detailed information on this change set, mapping 101 alert still, bus, city bus 5 and 7 have rerouted. Once again, it has been diverted off to NIA Road, BIR Road. And for those who are tuning here on Mapping 101 Thursdays, I'm giving you an immediate notice to familiarize with this new bus route or rerouting scheme that has been implementing right now, not only for you passengers but also for the captains and the conductors as well, that you have to obey those rerouting schemes that have been given to you. Well, and for those who are still tuning here, that if you're used to the frontage of the Eton Centris within Highway 1, AH26, C4, or EDSA, think again. Rerouting could decongest those routes that have been problematic and might as well decrease the chance of bunching with another bus. And for that detailed and of course, Jeepney Tango 2 to 3 have been slightly rerouted, veering off from the usual, center part. It has to be diverted. Wait, let me refresh this page because the rendering have not set correctly. But yes, of course, if you're going to make a left from the Highway 174 East Avenue, and this one is the signalized junction, and this is Avenue Medical Center. Of course, the whole Highway 174 is equipped with a bicycle lane. Don't you ever try to drive or park illegally because you might get pulled and cite you over. Of course, instead of the usual left turning into this portion in which I have to treat it as a main carriageway, a no stopping zone, then you have to make a left to this portion only, the rightmost lane. But then again, you need to make a left here after this jeepney stop, which could be equated into similar occurrences for Dasmariñas City as well. Jeepney routes are now being shortened in order to be confined within the local area and not going into the highway wherein there are existing bus routes. And if you're in Dasmania City, to all dear jeepney drivers, please listen it up, or please listen to this message and watch this infographic carefully. This one, Congressional Road, also known as Governor Mangubat Avenue. You know what? This one is still under construction due to the building obstruction here. Of course, it's too hard to demolish some sort of a building that is being required to be demolished. Still, there's something dispute here. And hopefully it would be fixed as soon as possible. But then again, errant jeepney drivers have caught misbehaving by illegal loading, illegal stopping, illegal loading and unloading at the same time on the main carriageway instead of the service lane. And as per result, they could get fined already and with the merit points as well. So if you have any intention to board or alight any passenger, you know what it means. You have to obey the traffic laws, rules and regulations. Use the service lane. Do not misuse the main carriageway in order to avoid some sort of citation. Private vehicles, watch out. You have to keep off service lane if not necessary. Misuse of the service lane as a parking could cite you over as well. And of course, you are only allowed to enter only if you yield to those buses or jeeps coming through, and even cyclists as well. Cyclists have always the right of way within the service lane that would be used also as a bicycle lane. And you know what? From Paliparan side to downtown Dasmariñas, one thing that I have realized something is this. Let me reactivate this transport map, and as you can see, what I have realized is this. Instead of veering into the highway itself or this part, you know what? For the westbound, or should I say the northern, from Paliparan side to downtown Dasmariñas, in order to get into the market, you have to exit the service lane, go into the main carriageway, and make a left turn. And of course, this one is the safest thing to do. to board and alight rather as safe as possible. On the LTFRB's regulation, buses are bound to be at the highway side, whereas jeepneys, the classic public utility jeepneys, have to keep out of the highway. And that being said is that routes could be altered also to most probably Albino Daño Street, heading northwards via Payapa, Malihan, and going back to the supposed original route. Jeepneys are only allowed to cross the highway, but if you're going to turn, it's strictly forbidden. Of course, expect more displacement of most public utility jeepney routes because, as far as I'm concerned, they are banned already on the highway, and I'm not 100% sure for the modernized public utility jeepneys by MEX or Metro Express. Most likely, it would be via Central Post Office or somewhere else within the, somewhere within the subdivision premises. Oh my goodness me. But time after time after time, from this Vista Mall Dasmanias heading to Villa Isabel, there's a modern jeepney. That's a good news. No need for you to take tricycles. Let me zoom this out. On what could it be the status of the public transportation? Then, most likely the Palico roundabout interchange or the TUI transport terminal could be the checkpoint bus terminal from Nasugbu. Of course, with the following developments, wait, I might have to go on a break shortly, so please stay tuned. Well, I'm back. Of course, the alert for the Mapping 101, and of course, you know what, during the commercial or breaks that have to be done, I have blocked already the spammy comments or other sort of nuisance. But of course, we're going back to the Mapping 101 alert once again. That even though we're running out of time, I'll be going to demonstrate it to you through the tape edition on how to map properly the bus routes with the correct specifications and correct attributes. That even includes the wheelchair accessibility and of course being with the compliance to the nationwide smoking ban. Smoking equals no will be strictly implemented on open street map tagging as well for all public utility vehicle routes, be it a bus or modernized jeepney or the so-called light bus, and of course classic public utility jeepneys, and even so with the UV express routes. Of course, I have recorded the here submissions last time, and if you haven't heard it, then don't forget to check it out here. Of course, though I have failed to record for the mental health awareness during this World Mental Health Day this Saturday, that here's my message for you. Of course, we're still struggling to do something that would be most productive for us. And even though there would be some sort of difficulties coming along our way, and that being said, that there would be a time for recovery. Likewise, I have to admit this one, that I have committed a tagging mistake, major tagging mistake on the toll equals yes and barrier equals toll booth. That shouldn't be mapped on the drive-through booths, especially on a fast food restaurants, and even so with the fast or let me say, drive to drugstores. Maybe I might have to combine into the single episode for the next Mapping 101 Thursday session. Moreover, everything would be much better once that the Mapping 101 Thursdays and of course Mapping 101 Alert will be more available on the podcast channel instead. Mapping 101 Alerts can be heard on DP24 Radio at any time, anywhere. Don't forget to subscribe or like or share the whole DP24 Radio on Spotify, iTunes, Anchor, Amazon, and even TuneIn and other podcast platforms. And so, having said that, DP24 Radio will be activated as well. Sooner or later, there would be some sort of announcements that I might be making out, because in the near future, DP24 Radio could be more useful not only for our listeners but also for our dear blind or low vision listeners as well, and those with disabilities that are only focused on the auditory feedback. Might as well as to take care not only for ourselves but also for family, friends, and community, and even your special someone as well. And so, coming from Dasmania City, home of the Pawpaw Festival, that concludes the Mapping 101 Thursdays. Thank you very much for tuning in. Good night, everyone. Sweet dreams. And always remember to be safe, be well, stay sane. You are loved.